The evening Caroline Lockhart climbed out her bedroom window with nothing but a carpet bag and her mother's silver locket was the same evening her father announced she would marry Edmund Fairchild in 3 days' time, whether she wanted to or not. The year was 1878, and San Angelo, Texas, was a town where women had few choices and even fewer voices. Caroline had 22 years of obedience behind her, but tonight she chose freedom over duty. Her hands shook as she lowered herself from the second-story window, her practical brown traveling dress catching on the rough wooden siding. The drop to the ground jarred her ankles, but she barely noticed. Behind her, through the open window, she could hear her father's voice booming through the house, already planning the wedding breakfast as if she were nothing more than a piece of property to be transferred. Edmund Fairchild was 53 years old, twice widowed, and wealthy enough that her father saw only dollar signs when he looked at the man. Caroline saw something else entirely in those cold gray eyes, something that made her skin crawl whenever he visited. She had overheard the maids whispering about how his previous wives had died, both young, both under mysterious circumstances that the town doctor had been paid handsomely to overlook. She ran. The streets of San Angelo were mostly empty at this hour, the respectable folks already home for supper, and the less respectable not yet emerged for their nightly activities. Caroline kept to the shadows, her carpetbag clutched tight against her chest. She had some money, not much, but enough to buy passage on a stagecoach heading anywhere but here. Her plan was simple and desperate. Get to the next town, find work as a seamstress or a teacher, and pray her father would not find her before she could disappear into the vastness of Texas. She made it as far as the edge of town before she heard the horses. There she is. The voice was her father's foreman, a man named Dutch who had always looked at her in ways that made her want to bathe. "Miss Lockhart, your father wants you home. Now." Caroline did not stop running. Her lungs burned and her legs ached, but terror gave her speed. The horsemen were faster. She veered off the main road, stumbling into the scrubland that stretched endlessly beyond the town limits. Mesquite bushes tore at her skirts and rocks threatened to turn her ankles, but she pushed forward into the darkness. A shot rang out overhead, meant to scare rather than harm. Dutch's voice carried across the night air. "Next one will not miss, miss. Your father wants you back in one piece," but he did not say anything about a little blood. Caroline's foot caught on something and she went down hard, her carpetbag flying from her hands. She scrambled to retrieve it, but rough hands grabbed her arms, hauling her upright. There were 3 of them now, Dutch and 2 other ranch hands from her father's property. In the moonlight, their faces looked cruel and eager. "Let me go," Caroline said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am a grown woman. I have the right to choose my own path." Dutch laughed, a sound like gravel in a tin can. "Your daddy says different, says you are having wedding day jitters and need to be brought home for your own good. Now we can do this easy or we can do this hard, miss. Your choice." "I will scream," Caroline warned. "Scream all you want. Ain't nobody out here to hear you." But Dutch was wrong about that. The voice came from the darkness, calm and measured and carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who expected to be obeyed. The lady said to let her go. All 4 of them turned. A man sat astride a large bay horse, barely visible in the shadows. As Caroline's eyes adjusted, she could make out more details. Broad-shouldered, wearing a work shirt and worn denim pants, a hat pulled low over his face. He held no gun, but there was something in his posture that suggested he would not need one. Dutch's hand went to his pistol. "This is none of your concern, stranger. This is family business." "Funny," the stranger said, guiding his horse a few steps closer. Looks to me like three grown men chasing down a frightened woman. Where I come from, we call that something different than family business. I said it is none of your concern. Dutch's pistol, cleared leather now, pointed at the stranger. Ride on before you get hurt. The stranger moved so fast Caroline almost missed it. One moment he was sitting easy on his horse. The next he had kicked Dutch's gun hand with enough force to send the pistol flying into the darkness. Before the other two men could react, he had his own revolver drawn and leveled. I am going to make this real simple, he said, his voice still eerily calm. You three are going to ride back to wherever you came from. The lady is going to make her own choice about where she wants to go, and if I hear about anyone coming after her again, I will take it personal. We clear? Her father is going to hear about this, one of the other ranch hands said, but he was already backing toward his horse. I reckon he will, the stranger agreed. You tell him his daughter is under the protection of Quinn Vaughn of the Double V Ranch. He has questions, he can come ask them himself, man to man. The name meant something, Caroline could tell. Dutch's face went white in the moonlight. You are Vaughn. I am. Whatever reputation the name carried was enough. Within minutes, the three men had mounted their horses and were riding hard back toward San Angelo, leaving Caroline alone with her rescuer in the Texas darkness. Quinn Vaughn holstered his pistol and dismounted in one fluid motion. He was tall, Caroline realized, probably close to 30 years old, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes that looked almost black in the dim light. His face was weathered from sun and wind, with strong features that might have been carved from the same rock that dotted the landscape. He picked up her carpetbag and held it out to her. You hurt? He asked. Caroline shook her head, not trusting her voice yet. Her whole body was shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. You got somewhere safe to go. This time she had to answer, and the truth came out in a whisper. No, Quinn nodded slowly as if he had expected that answer. Those men work for your father. Yes. And you are running from home because my father wants me to marry a man who will kill me, Caroline said, and once the words started, they would not stop. Edmund Fairchild. He is 53 and rich, and his last two wives both died young, and everyone knows he killed them. But no one will say anything because he has money and influence, and my father does not care because he will get a business partnership out of the arrangement. And I would rather die free than married to that monster. She stopped, breathless, half expecting this stranger to laugh at her or worse, to take her back to her father anyway. Instead, Quinn just studied her face for a long moment, then nodded again. My ranch is about an hour's ride west of here, he said. I have a housekeeper, Mrs. Martinez, who lives on the property with her husband. You would have your own room, your own space. You could stay there as long as you need to figure out your next step. No obligations, no expectations. Just a safe place to catch your breath. Caroline stared at him. Why would you do that? You do not even know me. I know you are scared and running from something bad, Quinn said. I know those men were going to hurt you. That is enough. He paused, then added, my mother ran from an arranged marriage once, long time ago. She was not as lucky as you. Did not have anyone to help her when she needed it most. So I figure maybe I can balance the scales a little. There was a depth of old pain in those words that Caroline recognized. She looked at this stranger who had appeared out of nowhere, this Quinn Vaughn who asked nothing of her but offered everything she needed in this moment. It was probably foolish to trust him. It was definitely dangerous. But the alternative was going back to Edmund Fairchild and a future that terrified her more than any unknown. All right, Caroline said quietly. Thank you. Quinn retrieved his horse and then, with easy courtesy, helped Caroline mount in front of him. The carpet bag was secured behind the saddle, and then they were moving through the darkness, heading west away from San Angelo and everything Caroline had ever known. They rode in silence for a while, the only sounds the steady rhythm of the horses' hooves and the night creatures calling to each other across the scrubland. Caroline was acutely aware of Quinn's presence behind her, one arm around her waist to keep her steady in the saddle, his chest solid against her back. He smelled like leather and wood smoke, and something clean she could not quite identify. Despite everything, she felt safer than she had in months. "What did you mean?" she finally asked. "When you said your mother was not lucky?" She felt Quinn tense slightly behind her. For a moment she thought he would not answer, but then he spoke, his voice low and measured. "She ran too, from a man back in Missouri who her family wanted her to marry. Man who liked to use his fists when he drank, which was most days. She made it as far as a neighboring county before they caught her and dragged her back. They married her to him anyway. What happened to her? He killed her when I was 10 years old. Beat her so bad she never woke up. Said she fell down the stairs. Everyone knew it was a lie, but back then, a man's wife was his property to do with as he pleased." Quinn's voice was flat, emotionless, but Caroline could feel the tension radiating through him. "I ran after that. Ended up in Texas, worked cattle drives until I had enough saved to buy my own land, built the Double V from nothing, swore I would never let anyone suffer like she did if I had the power to stop it." "I am sorry," Caroline said softly. "About your mother. Me too." Quinn was quiet for another moment, then added, "Her name was Clara. You remind me of her a little. She had that same look in her eyes, like a wild thing caught in a trap, still fighting even though the world kept telling her to give up." Caroline did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. They rode on through the darkness, and gradually the lights of San Angelo faded completely behind them, replaced by the vast emptiness of the Texas night. Above them, more stars than Caroline had ever seen scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. The Double V Ranch, when they finally reached it, was larger than Caroline had expected. Even in the darkness she could make out substantial buildings. A ranch house, a barn, what looked like a bunkhouse, and several other outbuildings. Fences stretched into the distance, and she could hear cattle lowing softly somewhere beyond the main compound. Quinn helped her down from the horse and led her toward the ranch house. The door opened before they reached it, light spilling out into the yard. A woman stood in the doorway, small and round and probably in her 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a bun. "Quinn Vaughn, do you know what time it is?" the woman demanded, her voice carrying a slight Spanish accent. Then she saw Caroline and her expression shifted immediately from irritation to concern. "Dios mío, what happened? Who is this?" "This is Miss Caroline Lockhart," Quinn said. "She needs a place to stay. Can you set up the guest room, Mrs. Martinez?" Mrs. Martinez took one look at Caroline's torn dress and frightened eyes and made a sound of maternal distress. Of course. You poor thing, come inside. Are you hungry? When did you last eat?" Caroline honestly could not remember. Mrs. Martinez tutted and took her arm, drawing her into the warmth of the ranch house. The interior was simple but comfortable, with solid furniture and colorful woven rugs on the wooden floors. It smelled like coffee and something savory that made Caroline's stomach growl. "You sit," Mrs. Martinez commanded, pointing to a chair at the large kitchen table. "I will get you food and then you can tell me what terrible thing happened to put that look in your eyes." Quinn followed them inside, hanging his hat on a peg by the door. In the lamplight, Caroline got her first good look at him. He was handsome in a rough-hewn way, with a strong jaw and high cheekbones and those dark eyes that seemed to see more than they should. There was a scar along his left temple, old and faded, and his hands were work-hardened and scarred as well. This was a man who had built his life with his own sweat and blood. Over plates of reheated stew and fresh bread, Caroline told her story again. Mrs. Martinez listened with increasing agitation, making angry comments in Spanish under her breath. Quinn said nothing, just leaned against the counter with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "This father of yours should be ashamed," Mrs. Martinez declared when Caroline finished. "To sell his daughter like a cow at auction. And this Fairchild man, I have heard of him. Bad man. Very bad man." She reached across the table and patted Caroline's hand. "You are safe here, Mija. No one will take you anywhere you do not want to go." "Your father will come looking for you," Quinn said. It was not a question. "Yes," Caroline agreed. "He is very stubborn, and Edmund has influence in San Angelo. They will not just let me go." "Let them come," Mrs. Martinez said fiercely. "We are not in their town now. This is Quinn's land." "His rules." Quinn pushed off from the counter. "I will have some of the men keep watch just in case, but Mrs. Martinez is right. On this ranch you are under my protection. Your father wants to make a fuss, he can try, but he will not get past my property line with those threats." Caroline felt tears prick her eyes, overwhelmed by the kindness of these strangers. "I do not know how to thank you." "No need for thanks," Quinn said. "Just get some rest. We can figure out the next steps tomorrow." Mrs. Martinez showed Caroline to a small bedroom on the second floor. It was simply furnished but clean, with a real bed and a window that looked out over the dark expanse of the ranch. Someone, probably Mr. Martinez, had already brought up her carpet bag. Mrs. Martinez found her a nightgown and left her with promises of breakfast in the morning and stern instructions to call out if she needed anything. Alone finally, Caroline sat on the edge of the bed and let herself shake. She had done it. She had escaped. And more than that, she had found help in the most unexpected place. Quinn Vaughn was a mystery, a man who had built walls around himself but still reached out to help someone in need. She thought about what he had said about his mother, about the old pain in his voice when he spoke of her. Caroline changed into the borrowed nightgown and climbed into bed. She expected to lie awake for hours, her mind racing with everything that had happened. Instead, for the first time in months, she felt safe enough to sleep. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was of dark eyes and a calm voice saying, "The lady is under my protection." The sun was already well up when Caroline woke the next morning. For a moment she was disoriented, not recognizing the room, then everything came flooding back. She dressed quickly in her rumpled traveling dress, wishing she had thought to pack more clothes in her hasty escape. When she ventured downstairs, she found Mrs. Martinez in the kitchen, rolling out dough for what looked like tortillas. "There you are," the housekeeper said with a warm smile. "I let you sleep. You looked like you needed it. Sit, I will make you breakfast." "Where is Mr. Vaughn?" Caroline asked, taking a seat at the table. "Out with the cattle. There is always work on a ranch. He left before dawn, Mrs. Martinez set a plate of eggs and bacon in front of Caroline, along with a cup of strong coffee. "He said to tell you to make yourself at home, and that he wants to talk to you this afternoon about what you want to do next." Caroline ate slowly, trying to organize her thoughts. What did she want to do next? She could not go back to San Angelo, that much was certain. But she had little money and no prospects. The idea of imposing on Quinn Vaughn's hospitality for longer than absolutely necessary made her uncomfortable. She had been raised to pay her own way, to not be a burden. "Mrs. Martinez," she said slowly, "does Mr. Vaughn need any help around the ranch? I mean, I am not much good with cattle, but I can cook and clean, and so I could earn my keep." Mrs. Martinez looked at her thoughtfully. You do not need to earn anything, Mija. Quinn offered you a place to stay with no conditions. I know, but I would feel better if I could contribute something. I do not want to be charity. Pride, Mrs. Martinez said, but she smiled. I understand. Let me think on it. Maybe there is something. They were still talking when the sound of horses approaching made them both look up. Mrs. Martinez went to the window and her expression tightened. Quinn is coming back, and he is not alone. Caroline's heart clenched with fear. Had her father come already? But when she went to the window, she saw Quinn riding in with 3 other men, all of them ranch hands by the look of them. No sign of her father or Dutch or any of the San Angelo men. Quinn dismounted and said something to the others, who headed toward the bunkhouse. Then he strode toward the ranch house, his expression serious. When he came inside, he went straight to the kitchen and poured himself coffee from the pot on the stove. Your father was at the property line this morning, he said without preamble. Him and about 6 men, including that Edmund Fairchild you mentioned. They wanted to come onto my land and search for you. I told them no. Caroline's hands had gone cold. What did they say? Your father said you are his daughter and he has a right to take you home. Said you are not thinking clearly, that you are having some kind of female hysteria. Quinn's mouth tightened. Fairchild did not say much, just stood there looking like he owned the world. I did not like him. Did they leave? After I explained that Texas law says a woman over 21 can make her own choices, and that if they set 1 foot on my property without permission, I would have them arrested for trespassing. Quinn took a long drink of his coffee. They left, but they are not happy. Your father threatened to go to the law in San Angelo. The sheriff is a friend of Edmund's, Caroline said quietly. He will do whatever Edmund wants. The sheriff has no jurisdiction out here. This is Tom Green County, and the county seat is right here in San Angelo, but my ranch sits on the edge of the territory. Even if he came out, he would have no cause to remove you from my property unless you wanted to go. Quinn set down his coffee cup and looked at her directly. But I need to know, Miss Lockhart, are you absolutely certain this is what you want? Once we take this stand, there is no easy way back. Your relationship with your father may be broken beyond repair. Caroline thought about her father, who had never once asked what she wanted, who had looked at her across the dinner table last night and announced her future as if she had no say in it. She thought about Edmund Fairchild's cold eyes and the rumors about his dead wives. And she thought about waking up this morning in a safe bed, in a house where people asked her opinion instead of demanding her obedience. I am certain, she said firmly. I would rather have no father at all than be married to Edmund Fairchild. Quinn nodded, something like respect in his eyes. All right then. But I think you should stay on the ranch property for now. I do not trust those men not to try something if they catch you alone in town. I already asked about working, Caroline said, to earn my keep. Mrs. Martinez was thinking on it. You do not need to work, Quinn began, but Caroline cut him off. Yes, I do. I need to feel useful. I need to feel like I have some control over my own life. Please. Quinn and Mrs. Martinez exchanged a look. Then the housekeeper shrugged. She could help me. Lord knows I could use another pair of hands with the cooking and cleaning. And the sewing, always there is sewing to be done. The ranch hands are hard on their clothes. If that is what you want, Quinn said slowly. But you are not a servant here, Miss Lockhart. You are a guest who is helping out. There is a difference. Call me Caroline, she said. Miss Lockhart sounds like someone else, someone I am trying not to be any more. Caroline then, Quinn agreed. And you can call me Quinn. We do not stand much on formality out here. Over the next few days, Caroline settled into life on the Double V Ranch. She woke with the sun, helped Mrs. Martinez prepare breakfast for Quinn and the ranch hands, spent her mornings mending clothes and her afternoons helping with whatever needed doing around the house. It was hard work, harder than anything she had done in her father's house where servants did most of the labor, but it was honest work and it was her choice. That made all the difference. Quinn kept his distance, polite but reserved. Caroline would see him at meals or in the evening when he came back to the house to go over accounts, but he never pressed her for conversation, never made demands on her time. It should have been a relief, but instead Caroline found herself watching him, curious about this man who had saved her life and asked nothing in return. He was good with the ranch hands, she noticed. Firm but fair, expecting hard work but never asking anything he would not do himself. She would watch from the kitchen window as he worked alongside them, repairing fences or herding cattle. His shirt sleeves rolled up and his hat tipped back against the sun. There was a quiet competence to everything he did, a sense that here was a man who had built something real and lasting through sheer determination. Mrs. Martinez noticed her watching. "He is a good man," the housekeeper said one afternoon as they stood at the sink washing dishes. "The best I have known. When he hired me and my husband 5 years ago, we had nothing. Miguel had been injured, could not do heavy work anymore. Every other rancher turned us away. But Quinn, he said Miguel could manage the horses, keep them shod and healthy, and I could run the house. He paid us fair wages, gave us a home. He has been like a son to us." "He does not talk much about himself," Caroline observed. "No, he keeps things close. But I will tell you this, Mija. Everything he has, he built with his own hands after starting with nothing. He came to Texas when he was just a boy, worked cattle drives for years. Dangerous work that killed men twice his age. He saved every penny. Never spent money on drinking or gambling like the other cowboys. When he finally had enough to buy land, he chose this place because no one else wanted it. Too dry, too rocky, too far from town. But Quinn, he saw what it could be. He dug wells, built fences, brought in cattle, and he did it all honest, never cheating anyone, never taking what was not his." Mrs. Martinez smiled. "The men respect him because he respects them. He pays good wages, treats everyone fair. That is rare in this world." Caroline thought about that as she dried the dishes. Quinn Vaughn was rare in more ways than one. How many men would have ridden past a woman in distress? How many would have stood up to 6 armed men to protect a stranger? How many would have offered shelter with no expectations? That evening, Quinn came in earlier than usual, looking troubled. He found Caroline in the main room, mending one of his shirts by lamplight. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "I was in San Angelo today buying supplies." "There is talk." Caroline set down the mending, her stomach nodding. "What kind of talk?" "Your father is telling everyone you have been kidnapped, that I am holding you against your will on my ranch. He is working people up, trying to get a group together to come out here and rescue you." "That is not true," Caroline said angrily. "I came here willingly. I am staying willingly." "I know that. You know that. But your father is a respected businessman in San Angelo and I am just a rancher. He is making it sound like I grabbed you for some nefarious purpose." Quinn ran a hand through his hair in frustration. The truth does not matter much when he is the one controlling the story. "What can we do? You could come to town with me tomorrow. Make a public statement that you are here by choice, that you are safe and happy. Let people see you for themselves." Quinn hesitated. "But that would mean facing your father and Fairchild." Caroline's first instinct was to refuse, to stay hidden on the ranch where she felt safe. But then she thought about what that would mean. If she let her father control the narrative, she would never be free. She would always be the victim in the story, the helpless woman who needed to be rescued, and Quinn would pay the price for his kindness. "I will go," she said firmly. Tomorrow, I will tell anyone who will listen the truth." Quinn looked at her with something that might have been admiration. "You are braver than you think." "Or more stubborn than I should be," Caroline said, trying for lightness even though her heart was pounding at the thought of facing her father again. "Stubborn can be good," Quinn said quietly. "My mother was stubborn too. It was not enough to save her, but it meant she never stopped fighting, never stopped being who she was, even when the world tried to break her. I always admired that about her." It was the most personal thing he had said to her since that first night. Caroline set aside the mending and looked at him directly. "Why did you really help me, Quinn? And please do not say it was just about your mother. There is more to it than that." Quinn was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable in the lamplight. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and careful. "Because I know what it is like to have no choices, to feel trapped by circumstances you did not create and cannot control. After my mother died, I was trapped in that house with him, the man who killed her. I could not leave because I was just a boy with no money and nowhere to go. But every day I stayed there, I felt like I was dying too, like he was killing the part of me that was her son, turning me into something hard and angry." He paused. When I finally ran, when I finally found a way out, I swore I would never let anyone feel that trapped again if I had the power to help them. So when I saw you running from those men, I saw myself at 10 years old, and I knew I had to help." Caroline felt tears prick her eyes at the raw honesty in his words. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand where it rested on his knee. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for helping me escape, but for understanding why I needed to." Quinn looked down at her hand on his, and something shifted in his expression. For just a moment, his carefully maintained walls came down, and Caroline saw the loneliness behind them. The years of keeping everyone at a distance because getting close meant risking the kind of pain he had experienced as a child. Then he cleared his throat and gently pulled his hand away, the walls going back up. "We should both get some rest," he said, standing. "Tomorrow might be difficult." Caroline watched him go, her hand still tingling from the brief contact. Something had changed between them in that moment. Some barrier had been crossed. She was not sure what it meant, but she knew with sudden certainty that Quinn Vaughn was not just her rescuer anymore. He was becoming something more, something that both thrilled and terrified her. The ride into San Angelo the next morning was tense. Quinn had insisted on bringing 2 of his ranch hands, Miguel Martinez and a young cowboy named Tommy, as insurance against trouble. Caroline sat beside Quinn on the wagon seat, wearing one of Mrs. Martinez's dresses since her own was still ruined from her escape. The dress was a bit too short and too wide, but it was clean and presentable. As they rolled into town, Caroline could feel eyes on them. People stopped on the wooden sidewalks to stare. Some pointed and whispered. A few women actually gasped and turned away as if Caroline were something shameful to behold. Her stomach churned with anxiety, but she kept her chin up and her expression calm. Quinn drove the wagon to the center of town, right to the front of the general store where the most people would see them. Before they could even get down, a crowd started to gather. Caroline recognized faces, people she had known her entire life, but they looked at her now with suspicion and scandal-hungry curiosity. "Is it true?" called out Mrs. Henderson, the banker's wife. "Did he kidnap you?" "No," Caroline said loudly, standing up in the wagon so everyone could see her clearly. "Mr. Vaughn rescued me. I left my father's house of my own free will because I refused to marry Edmund Fairchild. Mr. Vaughn offered me shelter and protection, nothing more. I am staying at his ranch by my own choice." The murmuring grew louder. Then her father pushed through the crowd, his face red with fury. "You are coming home, Caroline. Right now, this foolishness has gone on long enough." "No, father, I am not," Caroline said, surprised by how steady her voice was. "I am 22 years old. I have the right to make my own decisions. You are my daughter. You will do as I say." "Your property, you mean," Caroline shot back. "That is what I am to you, is it not? Something to be sold to the highest bidder." "Well, I am not property, father. I am a person, and I choose not to marry Edmund Fairchild." Edmund himself appeared then, moving through the crowd with the arrogant assurance of a man who always got what he wanted. He was dressed expensively as always, his silver hair pomaded back, his cold eyes fixed on Caroline. "My dear," he said in a voice like oil on water, "you are clearly overwrought. Come down from there and we can discuss this privately." "There is nothing to discuss," Caroline said. "I will not marry you. Your father and I have an agreement," Edmund said, and now there was steel beneath the oily tone. "A binding agreement. You are promised to me." "I promised nothing," Caroline countered. "You and my father made an agreement about me without my consent." "That makes it worth nothing in my eyes." Edmund's expression darkened. "You will regret this defiance, girl. Both of you will." His gaze shifted to Quinn, who had been silent until now, simply standing beside Caroline in quiet support. "You are interfering in things that do not concern you, Vaughn. I could make life very difficult for you." "You could try," Quinn said mildly. "But I do not scare easy, and I do not back down when I know I am in the right. Caroline is on my ranch by her own choice. She is not a prisoner and she is not your property. That is the end of it." "We will see about that," Edmund snarled. He turned to the crowd. "This man has corrupted an innocent woman, turned her against her own family. Is this the kind of behavior we want to tolerate in our community?" But the crowd's reaction was not what Edmund expected. Several women were whispering to each other, and Caroline caught the words "his other wives" and "suspicious." One man, old Mr. Patterson, who ran the feed store, actually spoke up. "Seems to me if the lady does not want to marry you, Fairchild, that is her right. This is America. We do not force women to marry against their will." "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," Caroline said gratefully. She looked out at the crowd, at these people who had known her all her life. "I know my father has told you I was kidnapped, that I am being held against my will. That is not true. The truth is I was afraid. I was afraid of what would happen if I married Mr. Fairchild. I was afraid no one would help me, that I would be trapped in a marriage with a man who—" she hesitated, then plunged ahead, "with a man whose 2 previous wives died under mysterious circumstances." The murmuring exploded into full conversation now. Edmund's face went purple with rage. "How dare you imply such things?" "I am not implying anything," Caroline said. "I am stating facts. Your first wife died after only a year of marriage. Your second wife died after 2 years. Both were young and healthy until they married you. I am simply saying I do not wish to be your third victim." "You lying little witch," Edmund hissed, starting toward the wagon. Quinn stepped in front of him, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. "That is close enough," Quinn said quietly. "You want to threaten me, fine, but you will not lay a hand on her." For a moment it looked like Edmund might try anyway, but several men in the crowd moved forward, their expressions making it clear they would back Quinn's play. Edmund was powerful, but he was not stupid. He stepped back, adjusting his coat with jerky, angry movements. "This is not over," he said. "I will not be humiliated like this." "It is over," Caroline said firmly. "I am not marrying you, not today, not ever. Find another woman to ruin." She sat back down on the wagon seat, her whole body shaking from the adrenaline. Quinn climbed up beside her and took the reins. As they started to pull away, Caroline's father called out one last time. "You are dead to me, Caroline. You hear me? You are no daughter of mine." The words hurt more than Caroline wanted to admit, but she did not let herself look back. She kept her eyes forward, focused on the road ahead, as Quinn guided the wagon out of town. Miguel and Tommy followed on horseback, keeping watch for any pursuit, but no one followed them. The crowd dispersed, already buzzing with gossip about what they had just witnessed. They were almost back to the ranch before Caroline trusted herself to speak. "Do you think that was enough? Will they leave us alone now, maybe?" Quinn said. "You put doubt in people's minds about Fairchild." "That is something, but men like him do not like being crossed publicly. We will need to stay vigilant." "I am sorry I brought this trouble to your door," Caroline said quietly. Quinn glanced at her, his expression softening. "You did not bring trouble. You brought yourself, and trouble followed." "That is different. I do not regret helping you, Caroline. Not for a second." Something warm unfurled in Caroline's chest at his words. She had spent so many years living by other people's rules, trying to be the daughter her father wanted, the proper lady society demanded. But here on this wagon seat, next to a man who asked nothing of her except honesty, she felt like she could finally breathe. "I do not regret letting you help me," she said. "Even if it does not make sense, even if I barely know you, I feel safer with you than I ever did in my father's house." "You do know me," Quinn said. "Maybe not my history or my habits, but you know the important things. You know I will not hurt you. You know I will keep my word. Sometimes that is more important than knowing someone's favorite color or how they take their coffee." Caroline smiled despite everything. "For the record, how do you take your coffee? Black and strong enough to strip paint," Quinn said, and there was actual humor in his voice. "What about you? With cream and sugar if I can get them. I know that is not very hardy of me." "Nothing wrong with liking things sweet," Quinn said. "Life is hard enough without making your coffee bitter too." They rode in comfortable silence for a while after that. When they finally reached the ranch, Mrs. Martinez came rushing out, her face anxious. "How did it go? Was there trouble?" "Caroline was magnificent," Quinn said, helping her down from the wagon. "She stood up to her father and Fairchild in front of half the town, made them both look like fools." Mrs. Martinez hugged Caroline fiercely. "Brave girl, I am so proud of you." But that night, as Caroline lay in her bed trying to sleep, she found herself wondering if she had been brave or just reckless. She had burned her bridges with her father, probably permanently. She had made an enemy of a powerful, dangerous man. And she had bound her fate to Quinn Vaughn's, a man she had known less than a week, dragging him into her troubles whether he wanted them or not. She must have finally dozed off, because she woke suddenly to the sound of breaking glass. For a confused moment she thought she was dreaming, but then she smelled smoke. Caroline bolted out of bed and ran to her window. Orange flames were licking up the side of the barn, growing rapidly in the dry Texas night. She grabbed a robe and ran downstairs, nearly colliding with Quinn in the hallway. He was already dressed, having clearly been awake or sleeping in his clothes. "Get Mrs. Martinez," he ordered. "Make sure she and Miguel are safe, then stay in the house." "What can I do to help?" "Stay safe," Quinn said firmly. "That is how you help." He was gone before she could argue, running out into the night. Caroline hurried to the Martinez's small quarters off the kitchen and woke them. "Mrs. Martinez immediately started filling buckets with water while Miguel, despite his bad leg, headed out to help fight the fire. Caroline ignored Quinn's orders and followed, carrying buckets. The scene outside was chaos. The barn was fully engulfed now, flames reaching into the night sky. The terrified screaming of horses trapped inside cut through the roar of the fire. Quinn and Tommy were trying to get the barn doors open, while the other ranch hands formed a bucket brigade from the well. Miguel was leading horses out one at a time, their eyes rolling white with terror. Caroline joined the bucket brigade, passing water forward until her arms ached and her dress was soaked. The heat from the fire was intense, singeing her eyebrows even from yards away. She watched Quinn disappear into the burning barn and wanted to scream at him to come back, that no horse was worth his life. But then he emerged leading 2 more panicked animals. It took over an hour to get the fire under control, and by then the barn was a total loss. The horses had been saved, but all the hay, the tack, the tools, everything stored in the barn was gone. As the sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they all stood exhausted and soot-stained, staring at the smoldering ruins. "It was set deliberately," Miguel said, holding up a broken bottle that smelled of kerosene. "Someone threw this through the window." Quinn's jaw tightened, his eyes going hard and cold. "Fairchild, or someone he paid," Tommy added, "probably figured to send you a message. But we did not lose any animals and we can rebuild the barn." "This is my fault," Caroline said, her voice breaking. "He did this because of me." "No," Quinn said sharply, turning to her. "He did this because he is a small, petty man who cannot stand being told no. That is on him, not you." But Caroline saw the exhaustion in Quinn's face, the soot streaking his skin, the way he favored his right arm where he had burned it pulling horses from the barn. This good man who had asked for nothing was paying a terrible price for his kindness. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the soot and smoke residue. "I should leave," she whispered. "If I go, maybe he will stop. Maybe you will be safe." Quinn crossed the space between them in 3 long strides and took her shoulders in his hands, holding her firmly but gently. "Listen to me, Caroline. If you leave now, he wins. He gets what he wants, which is you scared and alone and thinking you have no choice but to go back to him. Is that what you want? No, but I do not want you to suffer because of me. Then stay. Stay and help me rebuild. Stay and show that bastard that we do not break easy." Quinn's voice softened. "Stay because I want you to. Because somewhere in the last week, having you here stopped being about helping a stranger and started being about hell, I do not even know. But I know I do not want you to go." Caroline stared up at him, seeing past the soot and exhaustion to the raw honesty in his eyes. "You want me to stay?" "Yes." It was simple, direct, utterly sincere. "I want you to stay." "All right," Caroline said. "Then I will stay." Something passed between them in that moment, some silent understanding that they had crossed another threshold. Quinn's hands lingered on her shoulders for just a heartbeat longer than necessary before he let her go and turned back to his men. "All right," he called out. "Everyone get some rest. We will start rebuilding this afternoon. And from now on, we have someone on watch every night. I want to know if anyone comes near this property who does not belong here." The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. During the days, everyone worked on rebuilding the barn. Caroline helped where she could, bringing water and food to the workers, cleaning up at the end of each day and slowly learning the rhythms of ranch life. At night, someone always stood watch, and Quinn made sure his rifle was loaded and within easy reach. There were no more incidents, but the tension never fully eased. Word came from town that Edmund Fairchild had left San Angelo for business in Austin, but no one believed he had given up. Caroline's father had made good on his threat to disown her publicly, telling anyone who would listen that his daughter was dead to him. It hurt less than Caroline expected. Perhaps she had already been grieving the loss of the father she wished she had, the one who would have cared about her happiness more than a business arrangement. What surprised Caroline was how quickly the Double V began to feel like home. She woke each morning actually eager to start the day. She learned to make tortillas under Mrs. Martinez's patient instruction, laughing at her first misshapen attempts. She discovered she had a knack for handling horses, and Miguel started teaching her to ride properly instead of just perching side saddle like a proper lady. And through it all, she found herself increasingly aware of Quinn. The way he moved with unconscious grace despite his size, the rare smile that transformed his serious face, the patience he showed with the youngest ranch hand who was still learning. The way he always asked her opinion, really listened to her answers, treated her like a person whose thoughts mattered. She started noticing small things. The way his hair curled at his collar when it got too long. The scar on his left hand that he had gotten breaking a horse when he was 20. The fact that he always gave her the last biscuit at breakfast without comment. The way his eyes would seek her out across the yard, as if he just needed to verify she was still there, still safe. One evening about a month after the barn burning, Caroline was sitting on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors when Quinn came out and sat beside her. They had fallen into this habit over the past weeks, these quiet moments at day's end where they did not need to talk, but simply existed in companionable silence. "I have been thinking," Quinn said finally, breaking the quiet, "about what you said when you first got here about wanting to figure out your next steps. Have you thought about what you want to do? Long term, I mean." Caroline had been thinking about it, actually. "I do not know," she admitted. "I like it here. I like the work, the feeling of being useful. But I cannot live in your guest room forever, and I know you did not sign up to have a permanent house guest." "What if you were not a guest?" Quinn asked, his voice carefully neutral. "What if you stayed on as a permanent member of the household? I could pay you wages, same as I pay Mrs. Martinez and the ranch hands. You would have your own income, your own independence. You could save up, maybe eventually get your own place if that is what you wanted, or just have security knowing you were earning your keep." It was a generous offer, more than generous. But something about it made Caroline's chest ache with disappointment, though she could not quite name why. "You would pay me to work for you. It is honest work for honest wages," Quinn said. "No different than anyone else on the ranch." "Right," Caroline said quietly. "No different than anyone else." Quinn was silent for a moment, then he said, "Unless you want it to be different." Caroline's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Quinn said, and now there was something vulnerable in his voice that she had never heard before, "that I have spent the last month trying to convince myself that you are just someone I am helping. That what I feel is just protective instinct or obligation or anything other than what it actually is. But I am tired of lying to myself." "Quinn," Caroline breathed. He turned to face her fully. In the dying light, his eyes were almost black, intense and honest. "I am not good with words, Caroline. I do not know how to say things prettily. But I know that every morning I wake up glad that you are here. I know that when I see you laughing with Mrs. Martinez, or riding with Miguel, or just sitting on this porch, something in my chest feels full in a way it never has before. I know that when I think about you leaving, about waking up one morning and you being gone, it feels like someone is standing on my ribs." Caroline could not breathe. "How long have you felt this way?" "Since the beginning, maybe. Or maybe it grew slower than that and I just did not want to admit it because it seemed wrong to feel anything for someone I was supposed to just be helping." He reached out and took her hand, his palm rough and warm against hers. "I am not asking you to feel the same way. I know I am not the kind of man women dream about. I am just a rancher, rough around the edges without much to offer except hard work and an honest heart. But I needed you to know. I needed you to understand that if you stay, it is not because I am being charitable. It is because I want you here, because you have become important to me in ways I did not expect and do not quite know how to handle." Caroline felt tears well up, but they were not sad tears. For the first time in her life, A man was asking her what she wanted instead of telling her. A man was offering her a choice built on mutual feeling instead of obligation or arrangement. "You want to know what I dream about," she said, her voice shaky with emotion. "I dream about a man who sees me as a person, not a possession. A man who asks my opinion and listens to my answers. A man who treats me like an equal even though society says I am not. A man who is patient and kind and honest, who works hard and treats others fairly. That is what I dream about, Quinn, and that man looks exactly like you." Quinn's expression transformed, hope and wonder and something that looked like relief flooding his features. "You mean that?" "I mean it," Caroline said. She squeezed his hand. "I have been trying not to feel anything because it seemed too soon, too fast. I thought I was being foolish, thinking I could develop real feelings for someone I barely know. But Mrs. Martinez was right. I do know you. I know the things that matter. And I know that what I feel when I am with you is nothing like what I felt with Edmund or any of the other men my father tried to push at me over the years. This is real. This is mine. This is my choice." Quinn raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, the gesture so tender it made Caroline's breath catch. "I will not rush you," he said. "We can take all the time you need to be sure, but I am laying my cards on the table, Caroline. I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have already fallen, and if you will have me, if you think you could feel the same way eventually, I would like to court you properly. I would like to see where this could go." "I do not need more time," Caroline said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I am already sure. I am already in love with you too." Quinn made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Then he was cupping her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears, his eyes searching hers. "May I kiss you?" "Yes," Caroline whispered. "Please." He kissed her like she was precious, like she was something rare and valuable that needed to be handled with care. His lips were soft against hers, questioning at first, then deepening as she responded. Caroline's hands came up to grip his shoulders, feeling the solid strength of him, the warmth of his body through his shirt. The kiss tasted like coffee and promises, like the future she had not dared to imagine when she climbed out her window a month ago. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that for weeks." "I have wanted you to do that for weeks," Caroline admitted. "I kept telling myself I was being ridiculous, that you could not possibly see me that way." "I see you exactly that way," Quinn said firmly. "As someone amazing and brave and beautiful, inside and out. As someone I want to wake up next to for the rest of my life, if you will let me." They sat on that porch until full dark, talking about everything and nothing. Quinn told her about his years on the cattle drives, the men he had known, the places he had seen. Caroline told him about her childhood, about her mother who had died when she was 12, about the small rebellions she had staged over the years against her father's iron control. They talked about dreams and fears, about what they wanted from life, about the future they might build together. "I should tell you," Quinn said at one point, "that I have nothing fancy to offer you. This ranch is my life's work, but it is not grand. I will never be rich." "You would be a rancher's wife, which means hard work and uncertain income and no guarantee of luxury." "I do not want luxury," Caroline said. "I want choice. I want partnership. I want to wake up every morning knowing that I am choosing this life, choosing you, because it is what I truly want. That is worth more than all the luxury in the world." "A rancher's wife," Quinn repeated softly, and there was question in it. "Is that a proposal?" Caroline asked, her heart racing. "Not yet," Quinn said. "When I propose to you, Caroline Lockhart, it will be with a ring and proper words and everything you deserve. But I am telling you my intentions. I am telling you that when you are ready, when enough time has passed that you are absolutely sure, I am going to ask you to be my wife. And I am going to spend every day until then showing you why you should say yes." "What if I am already sure?" Caroline asked. "Then I will spend every day showing you that you made the right choice," Quinn said, and kissed her again. The next few months were the happiest of Caroline's life. She and Quinn courted in the way of ranch life, which meant working side by side during the day and stealing moments together whenever they could. He taught her to rope cattle, and she taught him to dance, the two of them spinning around the kitchen while Mrs. Martinez played guitar and laughed at them. They went on rides together across the ranch, Quinn showing her every corner of the land he had built, sharing his dreams of what it could become. Word got back to them occasionally from San Angelo. Edmund Fairchild had returned from Austin and was courting a young widow, apparently having given up on Caroline. Her father had indeed disowned her, but there was gossip that his business was struggling without the partnership he had expected from the Fairchild marriage. Caroline felt a distant sadness at that news, but it was muted. That life, those people, they belonged to a different Caroline, one who had died the night she climbed out her window. This Caroline was alive in ways she had never been before. She woke excited for each new day. She laughed more than she ever had. She felt truly seen and valued for the first time in her life. And she fell more in love with Quinn Vaughn every single day. 3 months after that evening on the porch, Quinn came to find her in the garden she had started behind the house. She was on her knees in the dirt, planting vegetables, her dress tucked up and her hands filthy. He knelt beside her in the soil, not caring about his clean pants. "Caroline Lockhart," he said formally, and from his pocket he produced a small box. Inside was a ring, simple silver with a small diamond that caught the sunlight. "I know it is not much, but it is honest. Paid for with my own work, bought with my own money. Like everything between us, it is real and it is earned. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and my partner and the person I build my life with?" Caroline's hands were shaking so hard she could barely move. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, Quinn, of course, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and then he was kissing her there in the dirt, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. Mrs. Martinez came running from the house to see what the commotion was, took one look at them, and started crying herself. By evening the whole ranch knew, and the ranch hands were slapping Quinn on the back and congratulating him, telling Caroline she was getting a good man. They were married a month later in a simple ceremony in the ranch house with Mrs. Martinez and Miguel as witnesses and a circuit judge officiating. Caroline wore a dress she had sewn herself from cloth Quinn had bought her, simple white cotton with blue flowers embroidered at the collar. Quinn wore his best shirt and pants, his hair freshly cut, his face shaved smooth. He looked at her like she had hung the moon and stars. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Quinn kissed her thoroughly enough to make Mrs. Martinez giggle and Miguel cough awkwardly. Then they had a feast that Mrs. Martinez had been preparing for days, with music and dancing and more happiness than Caroline had ever imagined possible. That night, in the bedroom that was now theirs instead of just his, Quinn held her close and whispered, "I promise you, Caroline Vaughn, I will spend every day of my life making sure you never regret choosing me, making sure you know you are loved and valued and cherished. You took a chance on me when you climbed on that horse a lifetime ago. I will never take that trust for granted." "I love you," Caroline said simply. "That is all I need. Just you, just this, just the life we are building together." They made love for the first time that night, tender and sweet and occasionally awkward because they were both new at this, but filled with so much love that the awkwardness became something to laugh about together. Afterward, lying in Quinn's arms, listening to his heartbeat under her ear, Caroline thought about the scared girl who had climbed out a window 6 months ago, desperate and alone. That girl could never have imagined this ending, this happiness. The next few years were not without challenges. Ranching was hard work, and there were dry years when money was tight and Quinn worried about making payroll. There were cattle that got sick, horses that went lame, fences that needed constant mending. Edmund Fairchild married his widow, and promptly made her life miserable enough that she eventually fled to her sister's house in Dallas, giving credence to all the rumors about his previous wives. Caroline's father's business failed entirely, and he left San Angelo in disgrace, though Caroline never learned where he went. She found she did not care as much as she thought she would. Through it all, she and Quinn built their life together. They worked side by side, making decisions together, treating each other as true partners. Quinn never made a major choice without asking Caroline's opinion first, and Caroline learned that having a voice in her own life was the most precious gift anyone had ever given her. 2 years after they married, Caroline gave birth to their first child, a son they named Samuel after Quinn's mother Clara's maiden name. He had his father's dark eyes and his mother's stubborn chin, and Quinn cried when he held him for the first time. Caroline watched her strong, stoic husband weep over their son and fell in love with him all over again. Samuel was followed 2 years later by a daughter, Elizabeth, who had Caroline's blonde hair and Quinn's serious temperament. And 3 years after that came another son, James, who was pure mischief from the moment he could crawl. The ranch house rang with children's laughter and the chaos of family life, and Caroline found she loved every exhausting, wonderful moment of it. Mrs. Martinez became Grandma Rosa to the children, and Miguel taught them to ride as soon as they could sit up. The ranch hands became honorary uncles, slipping the children candy and teaching them songs they probably should not know. It was loud and messy and absolutely perfect. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Quinn and Caroline stood on the porch where he had first told her he loved her. The ranch had grown over the years, more land, more cattle, more hands to help run it all. They had built a new barn, bigger than the one that burned, and added on to the house to accommodate their growing family. They were not rich, but they were comfortable, and more importantly, they were happy. "Do you ever regret it?" Quinn asked, pulling Caroline into his arms. "Giving up the life you could have had in town, the comforts and society and all that," Caroline laughed and kissed him. "I gave up nothing and gained everything. This life, this family, this partnership we have built, this is what I was meant for. I would choose you 1,000 times over, Quinn Vaughn. I would climb out that window every single night if it meant ending up right here." "I love you," Quinn said, the words as heartfelt as the first time he said them. "Then, now, always. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Caroline." "We are the best thing that happened to each other," Caroline corrected. "You offered me a marriage built on choice instead of obligation. You gave me partnership instead of ownership. You gave me love instead of duty. That is the greatest gift anyone could ever receive." They stood there as the sun set, painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink and purple, their children playing in the yard below, the ranch spreading out around them in all directions. This was the life Caroline had chosen, and she had never made a better choice. She had run from an arranged marriage and found instead a love story, a partnership, a future built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Years later, when their children were grown and Caroline and Quinn were growing old together, people would sometimes ask her if she regretted running away all those years ago. She always gave them the same answer. She did not run away from anything. She ran toward something. Toward freedom, toward choice, toward the man who offered her both without asking anything in return except her honest heart. Quinn remained the steady, honest man she had fallen in love with, growing older but never changing in the ways that mattered. He still asked her opinion on everything. He still treated her as an equal partner. He still looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. And Caroline, for her part, woke up every morning grateful for the choice she had made, the life she had built, and the man who had offered her not just shelter, but a home. They grew old together on that ranch, watching their children grow and have children of their own. Samuel became a lawyer, using his voice to help others who had no voice, particularly women trapped in situations like his mother had been. Elizabeth married a teacher and opened a school in San Angelo, teaching girls that they had options beyond marriage. James took over the ranch, running it with the same fairness and integrity his father had modeled. When Mrs. Martinez finally passed away at the age of 82, she died peacefully in her sleep, knowing she had been loved and valued. Miguel followed her 6 months later, unable to bear life without his beloved wife. They were buried on the ranch in a small cemetery that Quinn had established years before, under oak trees that provided shade even in the hottest Texas summers. Caroline and Quinn stayed healthy and active well into their 70s, still working the ranch alongside their son, still finding joy in the simple pleasures of life together. They would sit on their porch in the evenings, hands intertwined, watching the sun set over the land they had built together. 78 years old, and you are still the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, Quinn told her one evening, his voice rougher with age but still filled with the same love that had been there from the beginning. You are biased, Caroline said, but she smiled, and half blind. I see what matters, Quinn insisted. I see the woman who was brave enough to choose her own path, the woman who built this life with me brick by brick, year by year. The woman who gave me children and grandchildren and a happiness I never thought I would have. That is what I see, and that is beautiful beyond measure. Caroline leaned her head on his shoulder, fitting into the space beside him that had been hers for over 50 years. I was just thinking about that night when I climbed out my window. I was so scared, Quinn. I had no idea what I was doing or where I would go. I just knew I had to get away. Best thing you ever did, Quinn said. Well, second best. First best was saying yes when I asked you to marry me. Those are the same thing, really, Caroline mused. Both were me choosing the life I wanted instead of the life others wanted for me. Both were me choosing you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out one by one. Their son James came out to check on them, making sure they did not need anything, and they waved him away with fond exasperation. They did not need anything except each other and this moment and the memories of all the moments that had come before. Quinn passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 81, Caroline beside him as she had been for 53 years. His last words to her were, "Thank you for choosing me." She held his hand as he slipped away, her heart breaking even as she felt grateful that they had been given so many years together. Caroline lived for another 3 years after that, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She told them stories about their grandfather, about the man who had saved her and loved her and built a life with her based on choice and respect and partnership. She told them about climbing out a window and finding freedom. She told them about the importance of choosing your own path, even when it is scary, even when everyone tells you that you are wrong. On a warm spring evening, exactly 56 years to the day after Quinn had first told her he loved her, Caroline passed away on the same porch where they had shared so many sunsets. She went peacefully, a smile on her face, surrounded by the family she and Quinn had built together. Her last thought was of that first night, of climbing onto a horse behind a stranger and choosing to trust, choosing to hope, choosing to believe that there might be something better waiting for her than the prison of an arranged marriage. She had been right. They buried her next to Quinn under the oak trees, their stones side by side, their hands carved in stone reaching toward each other the way they always had in life. The inscription on Caroline's stone was simple, chosen by her children. She chose love, and love chose her back. The Double V Ranch continued on, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story that Caroline and Quinn had started. But the heart of it remained the same, a place built on hard work, honest dealing, and the belief that everyone deserved the right to choose their own path. Years later, long after Caroline and Quinn were gone, their great-great-granddaughter stood on that same porch, reading a letter that had been passed down through the family. It was written in Caroline's careful hand, composed in her final years for the descendants she would never meet. If you are reading this, then you are family. You carry in you the blood and legacy of two people who loved each other against all odds, who built something real and lasting in a world that often values neither. I write this to tell you that you have choices. Always, no matter what circumstances you find yourself in, you have choices. They may be hard choices, scary choices, choices that require more courage than you think you possess. But they are yours to make. I chose to run. I chose to trust a stranger. I chose to stay when I could have kept running. I chose love when it would have been safer to guard my heart. Every choice led me to the life I lived, and I would not change a single one. Your grandfather, your great-grandfather, he offered me a marriage built on choice instead of obligation. And in doing so, he gave me the greatest gift anyone could give another person, the freedom to be fully myself. Whatever choices you face, remember this. You deserve partnership, not ownership. You deserve love, not duty. You deserve to wake up every morning knowing that you are exactly where you want to be, with exactly who you want to be with, living the life you chose for yourself. Do not settle for less. The world will tell you to be practical, to be sensible, to accept what is offered and be grateful for it. But I am telling you to be brave. Be bold. Climb out windows if you have to. Run toward the life you want instead of away from the life you do not. And if you are very lucky, you will find someone who sees you as an equal, who treats you as a partner, who offers you not just shelter but a home. Someone who asks what you want instead of telling you what you need. Someone who builds with you instead of for you. That is what your grandfather gave me, and it made all the difference. Choose love. Choose courage. Choose yourself. And know that, wherever I am now, I am proud of you for being part of the legacy that started with a scared girl climbing out a window and a rancher who offered her something better. With all my love, Caroline Vaughn. The great-great-granddaughter folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down her face. She looked out at the ranch that still stood strong and prosperous, built on a foundation of love and choice and mutual respect. And she understood, perhaps for the first time, what it meant to come from people who had chosen each other, chosen themselves, chosen to build something beautiful in a harsh world.